Once you have made your branch loom with your warped string, then we are going to begin adding colorful yarn. This is called adding a weft. Measure about 5 to 6 arm lengths of yarn, and now we are going to be starting to do a tabby weave in the center of the weft. Loop your yarn around one of the weft strings and pull it to the center. Then you're going to weave in a pattern, under, over, circling around the center. Weave under, over, maybe about 5 to 6 strings, and then pull the string through. Continue weaving in this manner, under, over, until you get completely around your loom. Once you get back to your starting point, then you need to weave under 2 strings. This will change up the pattern. So once you weave under the 2 strings, then go back to under, over, and go all the way around the loom to get back to the starting point again. And then alternate over those 2 strings like you did before. So if you went under those 2 starting strings before, the next time you'll go over those 2 starting strings, and then again repeat under, over as you work your way around the loom until you get to the end of your yarn. Once you get to the end of the yarn, then you will tie it off in the back. Now that I am to the end of my yarn, I will flip it over and tie it off in the back. You can see the pattern here, under, over. Now I'll show you a Zumac weave with a heavy yarn. Cut off a piece of this yarn and unwind it so it's not quite so thick. Find a spot where you like to attach this yarn, place it through the warp and pull it halfway through. Match up the ends. Now you're going to begin to go with one of the strings and go over 2 warp threads, pull it down through, and then back up through 1. Again, do the same thing. Go over 2 warp threads and back up through 1 until you reach the end of this half of the yarn. Once you get to the end of one side, then you're going to do the same procedure on the other half. Take your yarn and go over 2 warp threads, push it down through, and then pull it back up through just one of the warp threads. Repeat this same procedure over 2 and back up through 1 until you get to the end of this half of the thick yarn. Once you have weaved both halves, match up the ends, put them over 2 warp threads, and then flip your loom over on the back side. And all you have to do is just tuck it under one of the warp threads on the back. You don't have to tie this into a knot. Just by tucking it underneath one of the threads, this should hold it in place. This is a completed sumac weave. You can take it and squish it up close to the center, making it real puffy, or you can pull it back and make it long and thin, whatever you like. If you like this sumac weave, you can choose to add another one. I'm going to make this one a little bit longer and in another area of the loom. These sumac weaves look to me like big puffy clouds in the sky. select another color yarn and cut off about 5 to 6 arm lengths. Now we are going to be making an Egyptian knot. Place a yarn needle on your thread and then tie the ends of the yarn to the back of your loom. Now begin weaving. You're going to go under 2 warp threads and back around 1 to create the Egyptian knot. Go under 2 warp threads, pull your string through, and then go back over one of the warp threads and pull your string back through. This creates the knot. Repeat this process around the center radius until you run out of thread. If you want it to be larger, then tie more thread onto the end of the remaining thread and continue to weave until you get a certain size that you like. Take a closer look and you can see the Egyptian knots forming up each warp thread.